So you like the idea of the Levo SL, but you wanted it with more power. Or maybe you wanted it with a quieter motor. Maybe you wanted it with adjustable geometry, or you wanted to run it as a Mullet, or maybe you wanted it as a 29er. You wanted it with a burlier build, more travel at the front, a 160 fork and 150 at the rear. So all of that, Specialized say yes.
This is the Levo SL Gen 2, a super light e-bike redesigned from the ground up. It's got Specialized's next generation lightweight motor. It's quieter and has more power, with 50 Newton meters of torque. It's got adjustable everything. Run it slack if you want, run it Mullet or 29er. It's beefed up, burlier, but still super light.
So when the Levo came out originally, it was in a class of its own in terms of the power delivery, the power that it offered, and also the weight of the bike. But over the past few years, more bikes have been released that offer very low weight, but more power. So the new Levo SL has a completely new motor. Every single part of this motor is new, even the casing, all of the internals, and it now offers 50 Newton meters of torque. The original was 35, and going up to 50 is a 43% increase in torque. The motor power has also been increased from 250 watts to 320 watts. So that's a pretty decent upgrade. The motor is exactly the same size and exactly the same weight. I owned the previous Levo SL for quite some time, and I tested the Customizable SL as well. So I'm really familiar with the motor on that. So I'm going to put this into the full power mode, and I'm going to ride it up this uphill climb over here, and I'm going to try and give you my feedback on how punchy and how different this motor feels compared to the original. So I've tuned it already to have the most amount of output from the motor. I'll put it in the highest mode, we'll put it in turbo, and we'll give it a climb. It's quiet in this forest, very quiet. I can just hear the birds tweeting and not a lot else. So it'll also give us another indication of the noise in the full power turbo mode. The power is instantly noticeable. On this climb, I'm on a trail, going up the trail. It's pretty steep. And I would say that this is noticeably more powerful than the existing generation Levo SL. Especially at lower RPMs, to get over the roots and the chunky stuff. The motor offers also a very fine level of power output, so as soon as I start letting up off the pedals, it doesn't give me any overrun that I can notice. The torque sensor in the motor seems really sensitive to rider input. So as I let up slightly off of the pedals, I can just get over these really slippy routes on this kind of uphill section just here. So it's a noticeable power increase over the previous generation. And to me, this kind of 50 Newton meter area seems like the sweet spot in terms of the power output that you get, the ride experience on a lightweight bike. And Specialized said, look, they could have made the motor more powerful, but with that adds more weight to the bike. And it starts to get to the point where it's not too far off of a full fat bike. So I think these kind of 17 to 18 kilo mid-powered lightweight e-bikes make real sense. They are not encroaching on full power territory, but they are still giving you that lightweight bike experience. This one weighs 17.7 kilos. Obviously it's the most expensive bike that Specialized do, therefore one of the absolute lightest SLs. But in terms of the power output that you get on a bike of this kind of weight category, really feels to me like the sweet spot.
To reduce the noise of the motor, Specialized developed a new two-piece motor chassis. with a honeycomb structure to help with noise reduction. The motor now has an impressive IP67 rating, making it weatherproof and completely dust tight.
Specialized say that this motor is not only more powerful than the previous gen SL, but it's quieter as well. It's not silent, but quieter. Okay, so it's in turbo, everything's maxed out. Let's listen to how this motor sounds. I can hear it, it's not silent, but it's way, way less noisy. I can hear the access noises and the dirt. They've done a really great job. It's much quieter than the previous generation. There is still noise there. You can't call this the completely stealth and silent motor, but I would say it's in line with the Bros, the full power motor. It's quiet enough. Like, it's not distracting at all. The noise is there in the background. It's filtered out a lot of the time by the noise of the dirt and the stones and the debris on the trail. But if you're looking for a quieter version of the SL motor, this is it. They've done a really great job on this one.
The SL has a natural pedal feel, both when on the motor power and when you're above the cutoff. There's a seamless transition on startup from your first pedal input, then a gentle surge of power to get you rolling. I didn't notice any abrupt kicks of torque or anything unexpected, just a natural supportive feeling. Above the motor assist level, there's negligible resistance that I could notice from the motor. Another seamless transition from the motor support to purely leg support. And now, because the motor is quieter, it's an all-round pleasant experience to pedal.
So it is still using the same 320 watt-hour battery from the previous generation, and you can use a range extender as well. They carry over from the existing generation. But I asked Specialized about the range of the bike, so surely in turbo you will get less range, which is true. So because the bike is producing more power, you're going to get less range if you use turbo. But actually, Specialized say the motor is now more efficient than the previous generation. So if you rode this and you set in the app the power to around 35 Newton meters and 250 watts, you'll actually get more range than the existing gen because the motor is slightly more efficient. Now, it might not be a huge increase in range, but if you're getting 20 miles on your existing SL, you're going to get that or more on this bike. But if you ride it in turbo, you're going to get less because the motor is producing more power. But I think it's nice to have that option. It's nice to sometimes find a steep climb and think, oh, if only I had a bit more power. Now, this is what you get. Quite a lot more power, actually. It's very noticeable. And not everyone rides in turbo all the time, but it is always nice to have it on tap. And I think, given the choice, if you were offered it, you would take it.
The Gen 2 SL has completely new geometry, more progressive, and it's now available in 6 sizes. Reach starts at 405mm in S1, right up to 525mm in S6. Out of the box, the 27.5-inch rear wheel setup offers a very short 432mm chainstay. A flip chip in the rear allows a 29er, and it extends the chainstay by around 11mm. But it also preserves the rest of the setup, so there are no changes to the rest of the geometry for riders preferring a full 29er. The bike looks sharp and lean, and now with its 160 fork out the front, it means that the bike should be a lot more capable on the trails. The suspension tune has had a big rework, with a change in the overall leverage rate, which offers better sensitivity and more bottom-out resistance. There's a lower leverage rate overall on the bike, meaning lower air pressures are needed in the shock, which offers better sensitivity, especially at the beginning of the shock stroke, and there's more ramp up at the end of the stroke before it bottoms out. It's got that classic Specialized feel. It's composed, easy to ride, but push it and it can take a lot. Or slow it down a bit and enjoy the flow.
So out of the box, the Levo comes with a 64.5-degree head angle, which is pretty slack for a trail build. So I'm actually going to try it in 63.5 degrees. I'm going to put the slacker setting on this headset cup. I've been riding it as a mullet for the past few days, and I'm actually going to put in a 29er in the rear wheel as well. So it'll be 63.5 degrees, which is a pretty aggressive geometry for a trail bike. A bit more burlier tyre. I'm going to go for a Cannibal, Specialized Cannibal on the front, and try and make it a bit more enduro ready so I can rip on some of my local enduro tracks.
I'm all for more adjustability on bikes. Personally, I like to fine-tune my bikes. So to have this amount of flexibility on a stock bike is a real bonus. There's no need to buy any additional hardware. It's all included with the bike. It just makes it more versatile. And it's all pretty straightforward stuff to swap around. A few laps in and I've found that this is definitely the best setting for me. The 29er configuration, and especially the longer chainstay, in this configuration the bike felt a little bit more like a light enduro rig. A bike that was more prepared to tackle harder, steeper trails. I felt the 29er configuration and the longer chainstay worked a lot better with my S5 sized bike. I felt I had a better balance and it was easier to get a little more front end grip. The slacker head angle made it feel a touch more composed out the front too. It wasn't full on enduro bike, but this is definitely a heavy duty trail bike in this setup.
So a huge amount of updates on the bike, and I think it's what a lot of people wanted. In fact, there was many happy riders of the existing SL. The want was a quieter and maybe a more powerful motor. That has now been solved, and then some. There's loads more added on the top. More power, more adjustability. There's a lot of people who really enjoy how the existing Levo SL rides as well. You don't need to run this one at a slack head angle. You can still maintain pretty much the existing head angle. So it's going to feel similar to the existing SL, albeit with better suspension performance and a longer travel fork. And all of these upgrades are really decent. They're very good additions to the bike. There's a couple of spec things that I wanted to change. First of all, I had to change the bars because the stack on the S5 I found quite low. So the stock bars were really low and I found it difficult to weight the front. Small thing to change, personal preference for me, but I put a 50mm riser bar. And the crank length is 170. I think that's quite long for an e-bike. Most e-bikes are going down to 165 or even 160 now. So 170 crank arm length is quite long. I did get a few pedal strikes. I had to readjust and calibrate the way that I pedal. Again, it's possible, of course, to pedal with 170 crank arms, but I would like to have seen something a little bit shorter on there. The seat angle could possibly be a little bit steeper as well to help perch your weight over the front when it gets very, very steep. But other than that, the bike is an extremely well-rounded, pretty aggressive trail bike. It comes with pretty beefy components, a Fox 36, decent tyres, big brake rotors. This is not a lightweight, light duty build. It's a trail / enduro ready build if you want it to be out the box as well. So they're not trying to get to this super low, ridiculously lightweight build that is suitable only for XC riding. This is a beefy, burly trail setup that is really ready to rip out the box. It's good that Specialized are releasing more than just the top end models. The Comp Carbon starts at £7,000. And then, like all the high end bikes that Specialized bring out, this one is priced at that high end as well, £13,500 for this S-Works. By no means do you need to go for the S-Works to get the same motor, the same chassis, and the same geometry. That £7,000 model shares all of that, just the component spec would be different. But the real key things are identical, and that is the frame and the electronics package. That is the same across all of these bikes. Now the battery is a fixed internal battery, you can't remove it, so it's not something that you're going to be able to take out and charge the battery indoors. Now that might be important to some people, but this one is fixed, and it's to keep the weight down and the structural rigidity of the frame, but mainly for the weight. When you start to add removable batteries, you need to beef up the frame and it adds more weight. So same as the SL Gen 1, this one you cannot remove, but the existing battery is the same and the range extenders are the same. So anybody that's got those range extenders, that will fit on this bike. This is a very strong upgrade on this bike, and I think it will please a lot of users, and it brings Specialized back into the forefront of the lightweight game. They were really the catalyst to this whole lightweight segment, I believe, when they launched the original SL a few years ago now. And this new one, with all of its refinements, its geometry changes, and its sweet Marley motor that Specialized have developed, make it a great lightweight option for 2023. Thanks for watching. I hope you like this video. Subscribe for weekly e-bike content, and I'll catch you soon.